Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Well, happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman, along with James Edwards. ThePoliticalCesspool.org is his website. 2 hours of hard-hitting talk radio. Really quick last hour. We talked about Jasmine Crockett promoting violence. Trump to welcome batch of South Africans to America. You say, wait a minute, why reject everybody and deport everybody else and welcome these people? Go listen to the last hour. The nuances are the details that matter, that you got to understand. Okay? Following the executive order, the U.S. Embassy in South Africa reportedly received a list of 67,000 people that expressed interest in fleeing the abuse they're experiencing. Just imagine that kind of law and order with all these other countries. What if we had that? Might we be able to get somewhere? Anyway, good news with that. Ty Kleppinger turning up the heat, naming names, attacking the FBI, scathing rebuke, saying, hey, quit covering crap up. And I agree, where's Pam Bondi when it comes to releasing the files on Jeffrey Epstein, huh? I mean, there was supposed to be a big old batch of those babies. Then it was, the FBI schooled her and spanked her and didn't give it to her. And now she supposedly has it, but we've seen nothing. Yeah, anyway, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announced that Americans who don't have real IDs, well, they can fly now, even though they told you they couldn't for literally days on end, weeks on end. Now they're like, okay, you really can fly. But I believe the noose is tightening. Took them 20 years to get real ID because it's look, there's no authority for real ID whatsoever in the supreme law of the land, folks. In fact, it violates your 4th and 5th Amendment rights, doesn't it? Nevertheless, that's what's happened. Real ID is serious. And my question to you is on real ID. What is real ID providing that we really need? I mean, if the cabin's locked so that, hey, the pilots are all safe and everything else, if they literally strip you down and, half naked and frisk your body and put you through a naked scanner and everything else, why do you got a real ID, James? What difference is that going to make? And the answer is nothing. It just basically ties your state ID to federal ID. Now, if you're not very careful, they're going to create a passport, which, by the way, is super real ID if you want to get technical. So now you got real ID, you got your passport, you got your database so that you can buy a gun, you've got your Social Security, you've got your this, you got your that. They got 96 ways already that are real IDs. What they're going to do is merge all this into one big real ID, and they're going to tie that real ID then to your vax card. And are you really, going to get properly vaccinated? Or not, or what, and you can't travel and this and that. And then they're going to tie it to your China-based communist-style social credit score. I'm telling you right now, this ain't good, and Trump should have stopped it, but he was literally asleep at the wheel, James. Well, or involved to his neck. Which one, James?
Well, it was probably just something he didn't address. You can't do everything, and I guess he could have put it into it.
If you call Sam and others, you can. You just got to get more people involved, James.
They probably should have done away with this. People should remember, though, and I think this is important, and you mentioned this in the last hour. If you thought that this was something that originated with Trump, you could dismiss it as saying, well, he just wants to make sure everybody is who they say they are, and it's just an added thing of security that falls in line with his tightening of the border and
you don't have
all
to
of this
have
other
the
stuff.
vote, James.
Well, exactly. Okay, all right. So let's get to that. But no, that's an interesting thing. You don't have to have it to vote. You don't have to have it to drive. You don't have to have it to go to the post office and things you would normally do. The big thing is the flying thing. But again, if this had been a Trump initiative, you could write it off as, well, he's just tightening up everything, and this is just in line with everything else. However, as you mentioned, this was something. This whole ball got rolling 20 years ago. Now that takes you back to the Bush administration, and I can tell you. If it was something from the Bush administration, there was no good. There were no good intentions.
Yeah, good point.
To be a part of it, and the thing about the Real ID is, despite the fever dreams of woke activists, there aren't really many homegrown terrorists, and they always like to pretend that white guys who aren't ashamed of the way God made them are terrorists, but in real life, the kind of people who would be engaged in terrorism or predominantly Muslim, for instance, globally. And these people, if you are talking about, look, why do James Edwards and Sam Bushman need to have a real ID card above and beyond the state-issued and government-sanctioned IDs known as driver's licenses? I mean, what more enhancements? I mean, what do you do to get that gold star that makes your ID the new and improved real ID that you didn't have to do to get your ID to begin with? I mean, you still have to turn over what, like your birth certificate, the proof of address? I mean, what more do you have to do? But the people that you really need to be watching out.
This just basically creates a federal database in relation to all this, is what it does.
See, that's the thing. I mean, yeah, you don't have to do anything to get it except just go in and say, I want the gold star. But the people who would really need an extra layer of scrutiny like this aren't getting it at all. For instance, I mean, it's not as though people who are coming in from outside of the country have to get a real ID to travel. They can travel with their IDs or passports from whatever country they come from. So, I mean, this doesn't apply
IDs
to
or passports,
them at all.
We don't even know who they are. They're fine, James.
Exactly. So that's the thing. I mean, that's the thing that really doesn't add up to the, well, it's just all for more security. That does not add up on that front because, again, the people that are coming in from outside of the country don't have to have real IDs. Their existing IDs and passports work just fine.
Anyway, shame on the Donald for allowing this to continue. Congress should have stopped it. Congress hasn't done anything at all in the last literally 120 plus days. They've been derelict in their duty, to say the least.
But I mean, does the federal database, though, not know what citizens live in each state based upon their regular ID, based upon their tax returns, based upon, I mean, it's not like the government doesn't know we're here.
Listen. Listen. What's happened in the past is the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, and I'm going to prove it to you. So here's what Barack Obama said when he talked about voting records. He said on the news, hey, I want you to know that if you vote, you're a citizen. Well, that's a lie. But he said that, and then people said, why? And he said, listen, your ability to vote doesn't translate to these other databases. And so what you've got is a bunch of government databases, but they're not connected. And what they want to do is connect them all, James. It's the next step to value papers. It's the next step to putting all this in place to then have triggers. James, you probably shouldn't fly today because you were on Sam Bushman's show yesterday. They're going there, James. We're just not there yet, but they're tying all these databases together is the big key. Pretty soon, your passport, your driver's license / real ID, your Social Security card, the gun registry, all these things are going to be put. But I got good news for you, James. You ready for the best news about the real ID?
I'm ready. I need some good news.
Are you sure?
Oh, yeah. I know it's coming, too.
What's that prison off of San Francisco called?
Alcatraz.
Okay, so they're not going to put you in Alcatraz. You want to know why?
Well, I heard Trump's going to put illegal aliens in there.
Yeah, well, you're not going to be put in there. You want to know why? Because it'll be a federal building and you don't have real ID, so you can't go in there.
That was the thing I was wondering about. I was like, well, that's the thing my wife brought up. I said, well, we can't go into federal buildings. And she said, well, I guess they can't put us in prison then. So
not really.
Yeah,
they'll find a way to make an exception for that. I'm just telling you, this is
exception for that one.
All right, so DOGE is in the news, James, and I want to talk to you about DOGE because I'm just so disappointed in DOGE. Now, don't get me wrong. I know they've done some good things. They've exposed some good things. They've had a great run in the news media to just absolutely make the enemies of liberty just lose their minds. And so it's been a great, media kind of psyop thing, but it doesn't really amount to much. Sad but true. And I hope it amounts to more than I'm giving it credit. But here's the deal. In the beginning, Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk said, hey, we're going to get rid of like $2 trillion of waste. $2 trillion. And then Elon Musk said, well, I don't think we'll get $2 trillion, but we might get $1 trillion. Well, now DOGE is being really, for the most part, defunct because Vivek went and ran for governor. He's out. Now Elon Musk has to go back to run his businesses because everybody's rioting and wanting to jettison him as the CEO and put somebody else in the place. So he's like, I got to go run my businesses. He'll still be around to help. But here's the headline, and I want to get your take on this. DOGE claims $165 billion in savings. They say that's over $1,000 per taxpayer. I don't know that I believe that, because I don't think $165 billion translates to $1,000 per taxpayer. But nevertheless, we went from $2 trillion to $1 trillion to now we're promoting that we saved $165 billion. And then the next question I would have is, over how many years? If it's 10 years, you'll have absolutely 10 different congressional sessions to reverse all that. And at the end of the day, you'll be saving nothing if you're not very careful. When we take a break, I want to talk about this with James, because $2 trillion to $165 billion, I mean, I know they're massive numbers, but $165 billion in comparison is nothing. Hang tight. James responds in seconds on your radio.
This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would enslave this country in darkness, and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in fact.
TheEpochTimes.com.
Looking for an IT partner that truly understands your needs? Managed IT Services is the answer. We meet with you regularly to discuss your goals and form a tailored technology plan. Our customers have called us a trusted advisor who delivers. When it comes to IT, we do it all. Firewalls, cloud storage, server migration, and more. Say goodbye to long-term contracts and hello to a team that earns your business month after month. Call 801-706-6980 now and let Managed IT Services transform your IT experience.
Can a nation conceived in liberty carry its head high if it denies protection to the youngest and most vulnerable of its citizens? Can a country founded on God-given rights continue to thrive without understanding that life is a precious gift from our Creator? As a physician, I have looked into the eyes of 1-pound babies. I have cradled their small bodies in the palm of one hand. I defy those who are careless, who would disregard life and look at these tiny little miracles and say, we're not going to protect that.
But I believe there will come a time when we are all judged on whether or not we took a stand in defense of all life from the moment of conception until our last natural breath. One thing I promise you, I will always take a stand for life.
The one and only Liberty Roundtable Live with Sam Bushman, James Edwards bringing us back from the break. I would like to say this, though, before we go back to the discussion of DOGE, and that is the work of this radio network still continues to improve and raise the bar. People like to receive their media in different ways, as you know. Some people like to read the news. Some people like to hear the news. That's what radio's for. Some people like to watch the news, and that is a new feature at LibertyRoundtable.com that Sam and his incredible team have developed just within the last few months. I mean, this is new, and it is good, and it is these short and punchy videos with incredible network quality. Special effects and visual effects. It would not be out of place on as a stinger on Fox News at all. And they're just, a couple of minutes long, very short, but hitting on all of the topics of interest to you. And they come out very regularly. I think Sam is now in the triple digits on the number of videos he has produced. And just the most recent one of the most recent ones talking about the income tax. Hey, are we going to get out of that if you make $200,000 or less? Calls for political violence, a video on that. Are you an always Trumper, a never Trumper, a Trump realist? Bill Gates, stuff on Easter, the resurrection of Christ, and crowds on demand. That is something that I don't think has received nearly enough coverage. Those are just a handful of videos that have been posted recently at LibertyRoundtable.com. Be sure to check it out. And while you're there, there is a contribution button. We are all in this together, and the work of this radio network, I think, continues. The impacts of it continues to be felt as it continues to improve and expand at LibertyRoundtable.com. Now, back to DOGE. So, Sam, of course, some people like to underpromise and overdeliver. This with DOGE was sort of the opposite of that. However, I'm still very high on it. I mean, personally, my take, just me speaking, is it has been a net gain, and I'll take any good over no good. And overall, I am still plussed on the impact that Elon Musk has had on this administration through his funding of the Trump campaign last year, and a lot of his ideas seeping into the administration in various ways. And the DOGE thing is a great idea. It was a prototype. It was something brand new office. And
it was
the work
actually
of it
started by Barack Obama. You know that, right?
Well, I don't think it was applied in this way.
No, it wasn't.
I mean,
it was started by Barack Obama as a new government agency, and then it morphed into what Donald turned it into. It's way better under the Donald than it was under Barack Hussein. Nevertheless, I just feel like, hey, here's the problem. Congress has not doubled down to help Elon and Trump with this initiative. And that's really where the rubber meets the road. If Congress literally passed into law and said, hey, we back Trump, we back Elon on this, we're going to cut this, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we would be somewhere. But Congress is slow walking and undermining the president. So my goal isn't to trash DOGE. My goal is to tell you why DOGE isn't working as intended. The answer is you're a member of Congress. Hey, they put both thumbs up when Donald's speaking, but then they go to work and undermine him at every turn. And this needs to be exposed. So is DOGE a bad thing? No. Is DOGE uncovering a lot of problems? Yes. Is DOGE being shut down by criminal judges that think they're above the law and by Congress that's derelict in their duty and doing nothing? Absolutely, people. You got to understand this. So am I attacking Elon Musk? A little bit, because he way overpromised. $2 trillion to $165 billion is a pretty big differential there. At the same time, hey, he's new to government like Trump was the first time, and the swamp is just too deep. And Elon's finding that out. Nevertheless, it's Congress and the courts that are the problem, and we've got to rein that in, and nobody but Congress and we the people can do that. And so I say that we ought to remove all 435 folks in 26 if they don't get it done ASAP.
This is a recurring conversation that we have on this program. The fact that Trump is only the president, and he is in constant battle with, at the very least, half of Congress, who exists only to oppose anything that he does, no matter how good it is for the country and how much sense it makes. And then, of course, all of these judges, who Stephen Miller said it best, you have to have the unanimous consent of however many federal district court judges
every
there
judge
are,
in the country.
600.
Yeah.
It only takes one, and they have been trying to overrule the defunding of different left-wing projects that DOGE has set out to cut, and you've got these judges say, you can't actually do anything unless we all agree on it. So,
but Congress could be in lockstep, and they could create tiny bills, and then right when the judge says you can't do that, Congress could say, Trump, sign it, please. Next.
Well,
that's
happen, right,
people. And my job is to tell people how the system's supposed to work and what we need to do to advocate for that appropriate check and balance. When the courts are out of control, impeach those clowns. When Congress isn't doing their job, hey, you better get on the job or you're going to get fired. Okay, and unless the people are indignant enough, we're going to get what we've always got, James. The change here is the people getting involved. So am I attacking Trump over or Musk over DOGE? I'm pointing out the glaring overpromising. Yes, I am. But I'm really focusing on why they can't accomplish their goals. And the answer is Congress and the courts. That's why.
Well, I mean, that is why directly. And then, of course, in a more widescreen way, I mean, this is one of the major impediments of a multicultural society is you've got all of these people with all of these different ideas and all of these different goals and objectives and agendas and wanting this for themselves. individualism versus the collective, and it's very difficult to make things work in a non-homogeneous society. But yeah, of course, Elon Musk, I listen to Elon Musk. I'm still giving him very high marks, but of course he had to leave Washington to go with a fire extinguisher back to his Tesla dealerships to put out these
to stop the
mostly
terrorism.
mostly peaceful arson fires that they're setting his cars on fire. The peace intolerant left wingers. But and they're spinning it now. I don't know if it's spinning or if it was always true that he was only going to be in Washington for a few months. I sort of thought he would.
No,
be there
they said that 2026 July DOGE was going to end. So he's literally leaving after a few months, basically a year early. And the other one that was supposed to hold the feet to the fire while Elon had to do anything, if he even did, would have been Vivek Ramaswamy, who bailed on the project as well. I think they ought to just put you and I in to run DOGE. We could do a pretty good job and we'd get it done.
They're still there. The staffers. I mean, the people that he hired to run it. I mean, just because he's gone back to his Tesla board meetings doesn't mean that the work of DOGE is over. As you said, it will continue, and it continues with the people that he hired to put in place. But boy, wouldn't I like to be there.
And good for that, by the way. Now let's do what we can, and this is why I bring this up. Let's do what we can as we the people to help them. Don't just sit on the sidelines and go Elon. Okay, we've got to get involved and put pressure on our congressmen and our senators and say, hey, man, are you voting to decrease spending? I mean, Donald Trump alone said, hey, we're spending $1 trillion on the military. We could chop that in half and spend $500 billion or $500 billion instead. Let's get that done. Are you putting pressure on your member of Congress? If you're not, people, you need to be. Donald Trump's doing a good job on a lot of fronts, and I give him credit when credit's due. Shame on him for the real ID, Donald. Shame on you. On the other hand, Trump, quote, free Tina Peters now. This is something critical that Trump's doing. That's a blessing and a half, and we stand behind the president in this 1,000%, James.
This is actually something that I don't think you are giving yourself proper credit for, in so much as once again, and what I mean by that is once again, Sam Bushman and the Liberty News Radio Network right in the center in terms of, again, what is a nexus in terms of knowing people who are involved and engaged in making news. I mean, Tina Peters literally spoke at a CSPOA meeting, last year?
Yeah, and we've even got it up on video. If you go to the libertyconference.com, you can go watch it.
So she was speaking at one of Sam and Sheriff Mack's events, and of course is now in prison. And
they tried to arrest her, by the way, for going, just so you know.
And is now in the middle of this big national news story. So, I mean, all the time, if you pay close attention and you watch, I mean, I swear, Sam, it's like that incredible year that was 2016. 2016, January of 16. I mean, it was the first week of the year, or at least the first month of the year. I mean, it was right there at the beginning of 16 when it was just a constant parade and
on one of the breaks, I'm like, James, it's ratchet up time, buddy.
Well, I mean, so right there, just to kick off that year, there you were in like a random picture of this, situation at the Malheur Wildlife Refuge, and here's Sam in like the middle of this picture, walking around. It's like, like where's Waldo? He's there in every scene. If you know where to look.
And it is amazing how many of our members at Liberty News Radio and Loving Liberty Radio Networks and everything, how many of us are on scene every time. We're tiny, but we're everywhere, James.
We, for the budget that we have to work with here, and we have been not a part of a lot of news stories, but in some cases the news story. But nevertheless, yes, I mean, this is a network whose hosts are engaged and informed and out there and doing the work for you folks.
Yeah, but Sam is a nobody. Nobody listens, and his fame is overstated. He's just a wannabe talk show host. He doesn't have any credentials. He's just a redneck nobody, and he's the nexus of hate and anti-government in America all at the same time. See, how does that work? He's nobody, but they take the time to write him up in Rolling Stone. Then Sam pushes back against Rolling Stone. I got to call my buddy Tim over there, by the way. I'll give him a call.
I saw a new article from
Talk
him
to him and
last
say,
week.
hey, Tim, what's going on, buddy? Ready to go to lunch yet or not? See, I invited Tim to lunch, and he goes, why would I go to a lunch with a guy like you? I said, because I'm a nice guy, and I'll buy you lunch. Is that reason enough? All right, the White House has followed my instructions. I'll tell you about it in seconds.
Your daily Liberty News Wire. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Greg Clugston in Washington. Domestic air travelers will need to have a real ID card at the airport today. The new requirements are taking effect after many delays. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says any passengers without real ID should expect additional identity checks.
Folks will come through the line and they will issue their ID and show it. If it's not compliant, they may be diverted to a different line, have an extra step, but people will be allowed to fly.
A valid passport is an accepted alternative. Canadian Prime Minister Carney is rejecting President Trump's push to make Canada the 51st state. At their White House meeting this week, the president said it would be a beautiful marriage between the two nations, but Carney said Canada won't be for sale ever. The Federal Reserve concludes its policy meeting today against the backdrop of President Trump's demands to lower interest rates.
If Chairman Jerome Powell's own recent cautious signals are any indication, the Federal Reserve will likely leave its key rate unchanged, keeping it between 4.25 and 4.5% for several more months as it weighs the effect of the White House's tariffs on employment and inflation, both key indicators of the state of the U.S. economy. The Fed last cut a 0.25 percentage point off its key rate last December. George Williams reporting.
India has fired missiles at Pakistan in what it says was retaliation for last month's massacre of Indian tourists. More than 24 people were killed in the latest strikes. Pakistan calls the attack an act of war. Mass was celebrated at St. Peter's Basilica this morning ahead of the papal conclave. Cardinals from 70 countries are sequestering as they prepare to vote to elect the next pope to succeed Pope Francis. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Just hearing the word IRS can make people break out in a cold sweat. No one wants to deal with the IRS, and now you don't have to. The good news is Legal Tax Defense has been successfully negotiating with the IRS for more than 15 years. It doesn't matter how much you owe, whether it's $5,000 or $5 million. You deserve the best in the business on your side, and that is Legal Tax Defense. Even if you're working with someone else and just want a second opinion, there is no cost or obligation to call. They can prevent levies, liens, wage garnishments, even file back tax returns. And the best news about Legal Tax Defense is they won't take your case unless they know they will reduce or eliminate your tax debt. Call Legal Tax Defense right now for a free, no-risk consultation. 800-292-7875. 800-292-7875. You have nothing to lose but everything to gain. 800-292-7875.
Imagine a school where faith and integrity are at its center, where heritage and responsibility instill character, where educating both hearts and minds brings about academic excellence. There is a school in American Fork where character and embracing the providence of a living God are fundamental, where students' national test scores average near the 90th percentile. Based on LDS principles and a love of country, now in our 39th year, American Heritage School is accepting fall enrollment for kindergarten through high school. What would you do for your child? Give them an education that will prepare them for life. Located east of the Temple in American Fork, American Heritage School is a remarkable and affordable alternative. Visit us, find us online, or in the Yellow Pages. American Heritage School in American Fork.
Have you ever had great honey? No, I mean really good, all-natural, raw honey? Well, now you can, thanks to localhoneyman.com. We can ship out our locally made honey all across the U.S. So don't worry, you won't miss out. Plus, Local Honeyman has so many different flavors, like Utah Wildflower, High Desert Delight, Happy Valley, and Blackberry, just to name a few. So purchase your delicious raw honey today at localhoneyman.com.
Do you treasure your liberty? Well, at lovingliberty.net, we most certainly do. And we want to help protect your liberty too. Become part of the family. Everyone knows that the core of any society is the family. Therefore, the government should foster and protect the integrity of its family, we the people. Won't you join us as a Loving Liberty sponsor to help us promote the principles in the 5,000-year leap? Let's restore the miracle that changed the world at lovingliberty.net.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, back with you live. Sam Bushman, James Edwards, running out of time way faster than we want to. I'll tell you this, Trump, free Tina Peters now. I commend Donald for that. I support him 100%. What do we got to do to help? Let's get this done. And many people say, well, hey, she's guilty of state violations, not federal violations, so Trump can't do that. That's right. However, what Trump can do is Trump can have the Justice Department investigate state officials who are promoting election fraud in the state of Colorado. And Trump could investigate those officials for violating election laws and et cetera. So Trump, there's a lot you can do, buddy, and we commend you for doing what you're doing. Now, there's an interesting twist. I mentioned right before the break that Donald Trump is following orders from Sam Bushman. It's a little bit of a joke and an overstatement because Donald always states things so extreme, right? I mean, he literally says, I run the country and I run the world. Okay, stop. Okay, we know that Donald Trump's rhetoric is over the top. So mine, hey, Trump's taking orders from Sam Bushman, is a little over the top. It's hyperbole. But I am making a valid point. I recommended two things regarding the media that Trump do. Number one, create a White House corps that doesn't actually have to sit in the room and make us all part of that. And we'll report the news and we'll tell the truth and we'll call it as we see it. You might not like everything we call Donald, but we're fair and we're willing to discuss. And if there's pieces of the pie that we're missing, because we blatantly admit, hey, we don't get anything unless it's filtered through the mainstream press first. At least that's the way it used to be. That's changing. And that's the whole point. The new media is taking center stage. Trump knows it. Even Biden knew it. And the fact is, the gatekeeping media of yesteryear, they're melting down with good reason. Well, anyway, so I recommended Donald Trump change the press corps. They're doing a lot of that. They took away AP's, the Associated Press's special status. Great news. And then I said, you got to create like a press corps that's broad. So then they created Whitehouse.gov/new media. Wow, that's an interesting term. I've been talking about the new media taking center stage for decades. But anyway, good for Donald. I haven't heard back on my application for that, though. I got to get a hold of Caroline Levitt. Problem is when I call her, she doesn't take my call anymore. She used to. But anyway, we're working on that. I hope we can roll this out, though. Whitehouse.gov/new media. That's one recommendation I gave. The other recommendation I gave, they actually did too, James. So I recommended that Trump release his own news feed. And you may not say, I don't want to just drink the Donald Trump Kool-Aid. You may say, I want to read that so that I can get a counterbalance to all the mainstream press undermining it. Remember, according to Brent Bozell in the Media Research Center, MRC, 92% of the stories about Donald Trump are negative, James, in the mainstream press. So we need to see Trump's side of the story. So I recommended, hey, Trump, create your own news site and tell your side of the story. I might read your side and their side and make up my mind in the middle. That's fine. Well, Trump did it. Trump's now done it. The White House launched a, quote, Drudge-style website documenting the administration's accomplishments. Yeah, it's called the White House Wire. You want to learn about it? Go to whitehouse.gov/wire. And you can check it out, whitehouse.gov/wire. It's in the show notes as well. After the show, you can grab those. James, what do you say to that? Trump's listening.
It would definitely appear so, and a lot of these ideas we have been talking about, as far as I can tell, longer than others. There are a lot of people now, who are talking.
Yeah, they're
about
all jumping on the bandwagon
things.
there. You know, when the Tea Party gets popular, everybody wants to jump in front of the train.
Now they're talking about things we were talking about 10 years ago at the dawn of the Trumpian era. And it's always been interesting how the media has covered the work of this program. I mean, 10 years ago, there were not nearly as many targets. Now there's just so many targets. It's just the establishment media is on its heels. It's backpedaling. They can't even attack everyone anymore because there are so many. It was not the case 10 years ago. 10 years ago, you had, at the end of the 2016 campaign, in fact, you had Hillary Clinton saying that using us in a campaign ad right before the election, saying people like that would be running the country if Donald Trump wins. You had Media Matters.
Yeah, that's good. That's because we're nobody. And we go from that to Donald Trump taking orders from Sam Bushman. Not Soros, really, I'm joking. Hey, don't sue me. I'm just kidding. I'm just demonstrating the extreme by being extreme, and I'm kind of making a point of hyperbole. But I will say I commend Trump for this, though, because now I can see the stories that he's focused on and his take on those stories. And it's very good. I'm on the email list, and you can go to that website and check it out. It's pretty good, James.
Yeah, a lot of these initiatives are good. You had Media Matters. You mentioned the Nexus thing before Congress and that congressional testimony. Media Matters, the Soros-funded group that just watches everything in the media and attacks people who say things they don't like, saying that this network was one of the top 20, what do they call it, right-wing media fixtures responsible for Trump's nomination in 2016. But, and a lot of these ideas have certainly been implemented, even if, again, look, if you are looking after the best interest of your family and your collective, you don't have to, credit is a secondary concern, I guess. You'd just rather see the things happening. And a lot of the things you've been advocating for, especially with regards to retrofitting, the White House press corps, has started to happen. It should have happened in 2016. It's happening now. A lot of things are happening now that didn't happen last time. And I think a lot of lessons have been learned. I think Trump has changed in many ways. But yeah, it'd be nice to have you there too.
After the attempts on his life, he's a lot more real about how deadly, pardon the pun, serious these people are. He also realizes that he's alive because of God. So, a lot of ground has been made on that. Anyway, I just wanted to commend Trump for that. The next story I find fascinating because I've been telling you this now for months. And I'm glad Marjorie Taylor Greene and others are starting to build this true narrative. Here it is. And I've been saying it, James. Listen to what the details are and tell me if I haven't been laying this out before anybody else. Here's Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's not happy with the direction of the administration. Warning people are in the president's ear who are lying to him, she says. So she was on Steve Bannon's show the other day and on X. And Greene told Bannon, quote, "It's a lie. There is no wedge between the base and President Trump. The wedge is between Congress and the establishment Republicans that are undermining the president's agenda." So she basically talks about this and she says, listen, the old style Republicans are gone. Americans voted for the new style, Donald Trump style, MAGA, not the old George Bush, Dick Cheney kind of style of Republican. The problem is the Republicans are undermining. So then the mainstream press comes and says there's a wedge between Trump and his base. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, representative, said, no, that's a lie. It's between the old-style George Bush, Dick Cheney crowd that are trying to undermine Donald Trump at every turn, whispering in his ear and lying to him, and the new Republican Party that's Trump-esque, that wants America first, that believes in MAGA, that wants to downsize government. And so she's doubling down in defense of Donald Trump and highlighting the real problem. Congress is old guard, led by Mike Johnson, and they are undermining President Trump at every turn, and we've got to expose this. So Marjorie Taylor Greene on Steve Bannon exposes this truth. I've been talking about that point longer than anybody.
That's right. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's what's the word I'm looking for? Eccentric and out there in some ways, but I do like her. I have an overall favorable opinion of her. She, along with Thomas Massie, though, interestingly, are, I think, the only two Republicans who have been outspoken in their dissent against Trump's initiative to make so-called anti-Semitism, some sort of a crime, targeting these left-wing Antifa types on colleges, universities, and so that's interesting. But yeah, I mean, she is right on most things, and this is the latest example that you bring up. So good for her. And good for you for keeping these ideas in the pipelines. Hey, listen, I mean, if...
Yeah, I bring it up and everybody kind of like, yeah, Sam, whatever. And then, hey, it starts to gain ground. And pretty soon, Marjorie Taylor Greene gets all the credit on Steve Bannon for it now, which I'm fine with because I'm not the only one that comes up with these ideas. I'm just happy that it's happening, James. That's all that really matters.
I do like to give attribution.
Here's the perfect world. Sam Bushman is a nobody, so that he can walk down the street, be with his family, and live a peaceful, normal life, but yet he can influence national and international policy on the world stage with the best of them. That's the perfect world for me, James.
Well, see, and I like to give attribution. Well, the perfect world would be, I mean, men deserve to be given credit for
I don't
good
need
work.
any credit.
You don't do it.
Give all the credit to King Jesus and everybody else, and I'm good.
I get it, and that's
that way my face is not on a milk carton, James.
Humble and polite of you to say. But, for me, I give a speech called Reasons for Optimism. And I was in Michigan last week and spoke at, it was just a week ago, Saturday. It was a conservative forum. And, I can tell you the story after the break. But there's a point that's...
Why don't we just skip the break and you can rock and roll, brother?
All right. Well,
Thanks, go.
Up at this... this conservative forum up in Michigan last week, and it was a 10 a.m. start time. It wasn't a full weekend conference. They do one speaker twice a year, once in the spring, once in the fall. And I walked into that hotel at about 9:45 on last Saturday morning, and the room was full. I mean, there were no empty seats, and that's pretty incredible for a guy from the South to go up to Michigan and it be a full house, just for a single speaker Q&A and a little book signing. But I give this speech called Reason for Optimism. I've been giving it for a couple of years. I updated a little bit, to work in some new stories and take off some stuff that's dated, but the bones of it are there. And so I'm up in Michigan, and there's a guy who I've used a lot of his research in this talk and a lot of his observations. And I could go up to Michigan and give this talk and not mention his name because nobody would know who he is anyway. It's just a guy that I know and who I read, and but I do, and I say, this isn't my phrase right here. This came from this guy. I think it is important to do that. I think it is the right thing to do, and I agree. Do think that a lot of our ideas.
That's why on my news notes that I put up all the time too, if a headline is on 20 news sites, I don't give attribution a lot of times. Because it's like I don't even know who to give it to. I don't know where the news media started or whatever else. If it's the Associated Press, the problem is, hey, they take credit when local stations turn over their news to them. That's part of their agreement. So the AP gets credit for stories that local people do and everything else. So oftentimes in that case, I don't give attribution. But most of the time, I put a dash space and then I tell you what source I got it from every time, including this Marjorie Taylor Greene thing. Hey, she's on it. She's on Steve Bannon. I didn't have to mention Steve Bannon, but I did. Because it's right. That's where it originated. And, hey, I don't have any ill feelings towards Steve. So I want to tell you that whole tale. I think it's important to do so. By the way, Joseph Farah over at WorldNetDaily is saying it's the 28th birthday of WorldNetDaily, WND.com. Please help us make it the 29th. So a big shout out to WND.com. I don't agree with them on everything, but I agree with a lot of what they do. They're better reporters than most, for sure. But anyway, I want to move to this, too. We're about out of time, so we're going to move quickly. Citing national security, Trump said that he would impose 100% tariffs on movies produced outside the United States. Again, this is where we need more clarity before we can speak out on that, James, because if I got an American crew, and let's say that I'm going to do an expose, a documentary on South Africa and how abused the South African people that are white, so the Afrikaners, are. If I go over there to film stuff, is my film now going to have 100% tariffs on it? So we need to get the details from President Trump and not attack him over this. We need to just back off a little bit and say what's going on and what are the deets so that we can intelligently break this down. That's my take right now, James.
Yeah, he has fluctuated pretty wildly with these tariffs, the on-again, off-again tariffs, and the rates are adjustable, a lot more than adjustable rate mortgages even. So we'll see where it goes on that. Overall, I think he's aiming in the right direction with these tariffs and facing a lot of pressure. I mean, when you're talking about the world economy, I mean, think of the pressure coming down on you for trying to make some changes. And the upheaval that it's going to have, even with the good idea that is tariffs, the upheaval that it's going to have on the short term. But he's still got his hands on that and is working on it, and that'll be something. Again, we talk with Lou Moore at greater length about this weekend on TPC. But yeah, 100% tariffs.
All right, so let me tell you what's in the news from the White House email that I got. So remember, it's Whitehouse.gov/wire is where you can learn about it or whatever. You can sign up for the emails and everything else. Here's the first story on this list, James. I find this interesting. Fox News. So they quote the source. Supreme Court stays lower court ruling, allows Trump transgender ban to proceed.
Yes.
Yeah, the Supreme Court lifted a lower court injunction on President Trump's transgender military ban, allowing it to proceed while legal challenges continue. Now, okay, that's on Trump's newsfeed, James. So he's candid. He's saying it's still in the courts, but we won a temporary, and hopefully it'll be more permanent as time goes on or whatever. But I'm just saying that's straight from the Trump White House. And then they tell you that they got it from Fox. And see, I appreciate that because then when I read the news all over the place, I've at least got Trump's perspective and view. That's critical. I don't understand why it's taken this long for the administrations to do this, James.
Yeah, now I want to see some attribution to Liberty News Radio, but the Supreme Court is, it's been schizophrenic overall, but there have been some wins you wouldn't have gotten otherwise, and this is one of them. And in fact, when I saw this, I was, of course, very pleased and very happy to see something so common sense and decent and wholesome and healthy and good come from the Supreme Court. It would have appeared, though, that this would have been one that they could have been a little more wishy-washy on, using the whole, so-called civil rights, the perverting the whole so-called civil rights legislation to include these mentally ill people. But they held the line on this. It's amazing if they will hold the line on this, why they didn't on some of the other things that they have had some rulings that went against what Trump was seeking.
It all depends on what judges you get, buddy.
Yeah, but I'm talking about on the Supreme Court level. Them
I know,
doing
but
this,
oftentimes those don't go to all the Supreme Court judges. Oftentimes it just goes to one or two that make decisions on things too. People don't understand behind the scenes how that stuff works. But oftentimes it's not all the justices. In fact, all the justices don't even release their rulings till the summer. And when you know a decision comes out early, it's a subset of those judges. Okay, just so people understand that.
That's a good point.
The next highlight on Trump's website news is interesting. It says this. New York Post is where it came from. Trump tells Harvard no more money with anti-Semitism. You got to have a crackdown on anti-Semitism or no more money for you. What do you say to that, James?
I am against it in theory because, again, this does go to freedom of speech.
Trump's drinking the Kool-Aid, buddy.
I am in favor of it because it's harming the people who are harming us. It is, you could say, well, you're opening up a Pandora's box if you allow this and you support this. I get it, but the fact of the matter is, it's done and it's here and it's there and it's happening, and the fact that it is damaging not only one of the most wretched institutions in this country, Harvard University, and also damaging these students. These students are not free speech advocates. I mean, these are people who would snuff out our freedom of speech in a nanosecond. And these are not conservatives who have a difference of opinion on Israel or whatever, or Palestine or Gaza. These are Antifa. These are BLM, and overwhelmingly, interestingly, they're Jewish. So that's another thing that makes it really sort of, a head scratcher. At Harvard, I mean, overwhelmingly, these people who are getting targeted with so-called anti-Semitic hate speech are Jewish. But they are left-wing and they are Antifa. So if it's damaging Harvard and it's damaging these people, I really support it, even though on principle I would say we don't need anything that limits speech.
Well, and I support their free speech. What I don't support is the taxpayers funding that agenda, James. So I support Trump in this because, hey, I don't want the taxpayers funding that agenda. I don't want my taxes to go to that. You have your right to your free speech, and I support that, but you don't have the right to steal my money to peddle your free speech, right?
Well, Harvard's got plenty of money.
Their endowment is... That's kind of the bottom line, right? Think about it. This is about them spending my money for that agenda.
No, I hear you. Of course, Harvard's a privately funded school, but most of them, most of the universities, or at least a good portion of them, are state funded or taxpayer government funded.
Yeah, so to me, that's the critical issue for people to understand. I support Trump in this because, hey, let's yank the money to all these education clowns. First off, we don't even need to be funding education. Secondly, hey, you have the right to your free speech. I don't deny that, but you don't have the right to the free speech at my expense. It's kind of how he shut down the money for PBS and NPR. Hey, I'm glad about that. I mean, they have every right to exist and every right to express their opinions. What they don't have a right to do is force me to pay for it, James. And that's what really is at the core of this discussion, in my opinion.
Yep, that's absolutely right, and we'll see. I mean, this war against the colleges has been another interesting wrinkle in the Trump administration, and something you certainly wouldn't have had otherwise. And it is the people being adversely affected by this are no friends of liberty, no friends of America, no friends of Christ. These universities, these radical left-wing universities, and radical left-wing students. So this is not something that is damaging conservatism and conservative free speech.
All right,
so again, this is where you and I
differ.
I'm all for. See, this is the thing where you and I differ a little bit. Is that I'm always for. When I look at any issue, is it good for our people?
You're for what, though?
I'm for limiting the freedom of speech of my enemies and increasing it for the people that I agree with.
Yeah, and I'm not for limiting their free speech. I am for limiting the funding, and that's what Trump is doing, though. So Trump's view, or at least this discussion, is different than you're articulating. Trump's saying we're not going to fund Harvard because we're not going to promote and fund education, and we're not going to fund your promotion of Palestine or whatever these riots in the campuses and the streets. And it's about funding, James, is the point, right?
Yeah, no, I get it, but I'm just saying, I mean, why does Harvard need government funding when it's got
that's what I'm saying. Both you and I agree. You and I agree, let's get rid of it, right?
Yeah. Sure.
But the White House, for sure. The White House wins some battles and they lose many others. And the problem is that you don't hear about the ones that they lose. Trump lost a big battle. So Trump denied funding for a government school program called Head Start. Well, now the headline says this: the White House reneged on a plan to zero out funding for Head Start, a preschool program relied on by thousands of low-income families, James. And I got a problem with this whole thing. Why did you do that, James? That's a mistake. And I think it's because of what Marjorie Taylor Greene says. The wrong people are whispering in his ear, buddy. Right?
Well, how did anyone ever learn anything before the Federal Department of Education? I mean, so to me, it just goes back to that. I'm not probably too opposed to taking out Head Start. I mean, people
I am, because if you want to start your kids on propaganda, at least start them at 5, not 2. Come on now. See, that's good for our people to shut that sucker down and stop the indoctrination at the youngest ages. I mean, it's just riddled with DEI and riddled with all kinds of.
Oh no, I'm for all that. No, I
thought
I may have misunderstood you. No, I'm all for that.
Yeah,
I'm certainly for funding.
The point is now Donald reneged though, so now he's back funding.
Oh,
it.
I see. Okay, yeah, all
right. He shouldn't be funding it, and I'm saying shame on the Donald. You shouldn't have reneged.
Absolutely.
You should have stuck to your guns and shut that crap down yesterday, Donald. Come on now. And again, I'm not here to beat up President Trump. I'm here to point out what's true and right. And it's not true and right for at the federal level for them to fund little teeny 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds getting indoctrinated by the administration in power. Okay, that's the problem. Okay?
Yeah, this isn't consistent.
That's the issue.
No, that's not consistent with basically his agenda with regards to education. Okay, so I misunderstood. I heard that wrong. No, that should absolutely be defunded. I mean, how can you send in Linda McMahon to dismantle the Department of Education and still be in favor of, this?
And you can't even get rid of Head Start, for crying out loud. How are you going to get rid of the more entrenched? The older they get, the more entrenched they are, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But of course, that's
I would love to see it all go back to
families.
local.
Anyway, sad tale. The good news is that we the people are standing guard, telling you the truth. That's what the media is supposed to do, is lay out things as we call it, as we see it, right? And that's what we're doing on your radio, ladies and gentlemen. This is the one and only Liberty Roundtable Live and the politicalcesspool.org. Check out that award-winning broadcast every Saturday night live or anytime during the week on demand at thepoliticalcesspool.org. James, appreciate you, brother.
2 hours, way too fast, as always. Thank you, Sam.
All right, folks, there you have it. I'm putting up the show notes now for what's today, the 7th? All right, getting that done. And all I'm telling you is great stuff. God save our republic.